Something very special is unfolding in Minnesota as multiple updates regarding this team's prospects, as well as young players, have unfolded, and things are pointing in a very exciting direction for this Wild team. We got to touch on quite a few people here today, including Charlie Stramel, who we have a very good update regarding him, as well as David Jiricek, and what one writer said about him will have Minnesota Wild fans buzzing. You won't want to miss what we have to bring you here today, ladies and gentlemen. Before we do jump into this video, though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're less than 100 subscribers away from 2,000. Your sports has been phenomenal on the channel. Now that Marco Rossi is signed, we can move on to bigger and better things, and things like this are continuing to come out, so you won't want to miss it. But let's get straight into this here. Firstly, I want to touch on Charlie Stramel. He's been given a very good title here with MSU as an assistant captain for this year's 2025-2026 Michigan State Spartans team. Now, going from last year, this was obviously a major boost in his college career. After moving on and getting to MSU, we saw that real bounce back that Charlie Stramel needed. We saw Charlie Stramel that looked like a brand new player and something that the Minnesota Wild were looking for in him. And I mean, going from last year, looking at from him in Wisconsin to him in Michigan, there was a major difference there. He really was starting to come back into himself like he was with the National Development Program team in 21 and 22, and also playing in said competition more so than any other scenario is a much more ideal kind of situation. We're going to jump into that in a minute here as well when it comes down to what it would look like if he were to turn pro this year, which would not be the right move at all whatsoever. But I do want to pull up one quote quickly before we do jump into that here from Brad Bombardier from 2024 from The Athletic. He says, "We're going to stick with this kid. He's the director of Wild player development. So we're starting to see glimpses, and he's starting to figure it out, and he knows that he's just scratching the surface." So easily kind of pointing back to that situation where he did go from Wisconsin to MSU. The Wild knew that that was the right move, and I am very positive that they encouraged him to stay with that team. Go another year there, as now as assistant captain, learning more, continuing to get and be a better player than what he would have at Wisconsin. MSU, we know, is a very good situation. I'm sure that a lot of you guys know, especially down in Minnesota, around the scene, that the NCAA is a very, very, already big league, but it's even more up and coming now when you're getting guys like Porter Martone, Gavin McKenna. You're going to be facing, future NHL level competition guaranteed, and not just NHL competition. Legit superstar talent down in the NCAA. So this is a very, very good look for Charlie Stramel, not just staying there, not just being an assistant captain, but also for his development when it's coming down to his future tenure with the Minnesota Wild. And we know that's going to be something that everybody is excited for. I cannot wait, but the right steps have to be taken, and that is starting off with going down, staying in that NCAA team, and having another year to develop. And I think this is something else to kind of pull up and kind of add to that fact that Stramel is not expected to be a major producer in the NHL. I'm not going to overly disagree, but saying that, I think, is a bit bold on this instance. Now, going into it, he's likely not going to be a number one center, but there's a lot of value in a middle six center who can play a power forwards game, be part of both special teams, and win faceoffs, and that's what Stramel can do, and especially when you're going back to take a look at him. I mean, the kid's 6'3", 215. He is not a small guy whatsoever, and when you're playing him at that collegiate level, he's going to be getting a lot more confidence down there than coming up and playing some of these absolute goons in the AHL. So he's already used to the physicality of his game. He knows the physicality of his game, and he knows what the physicality of the future levels are going to be. However, when you're coming into this, it is obviously the right direction to take to stay at that level, have another year at MSU, and hopefully see that point total jump up to above a point per game. If we do see that, regardless of whatever happens, we're going to see a good season out of him anyways. But if we do see a plus point per game, we have something very special on our hands. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I will not doubt that we will see that. Now, I also did want to pull up this, kind of touching on the Iowa Wild situation, why it's a very good idea to not go there and not have to develop down there. Is when you look over the past few seasons, obviously it's been a terrible couple of years for the Iowa Wild. 27-37 in the last two. Going down to that team, they've been out of the playoffs forever. And when you're at MSU, when you're at a team like MSU, or really any of the top collegiate levels, which a few other Minnesota Wild players are, that's where you learn to win, and that's what the Wild's kind of mentality needs to be going forward. We've spoken about that here on the channel over, the summer, that when you're looking at the Iowa Wild, when you're looking at players coming up from there, they don't know how to win at a pro level down in the AHL. So when you're translating your game to the NHL and seeing what Bill Guerin said when he's like, hey, We just want players to learn to play good down in the AHL. You need to learn to win as well, and I think this is the exact position that Charlie Stramel is in at MSU. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about that. Is him being named assistant captain. I just want to say one big congratulations to him as well for that, because that's no easy feat, going to a different college, first year, having success there, and becoming an assistant captain. So let me know what you think about Charlie Stramel in the comments below, and how this will help his game develop into what the Minnesota Wild want him to be. But I do have another update now, and this one comes from David Jiricek. We're switching positions now. We're going to the defense, and this is something from an Hockey Wilderness article that I did want to pull up that really set the mindset of a lot of Wild fans into the right direction. And this is what we have to say here from Justin Wiggins, and he wrote this. He wound up, his stick nearly tickling the rafters. I know this sounds like a storybook, but it is not. Among the litany of retired maroon and white jerseys, he unleashed a slap shot that missed the net entirely but rattled the glass beyond the net, with a sound not typically heard in an NHL arena. It was just different. Now, this is on David Jiricek, one of his very few games in the NHL this season after the Wild had traded for him. He's seeing something special, and I think kind of putting this in the right direction, having him as a very big vocal point heading into the season, we need to see David Jiricek, and the Wild need to absolutely kind of take into consideration his volatility as a defenseman. Now, going into kind of him as a player in general, the Wild obviously have a lot of trust in him. They know that they want him to be a specific player because they went out and traded for him. They gave up quite a bit for him at the end of the day, and seeing him and seeing these kinds of plays live, we know that you can see a different player. So having this come out and having that idea, that mentality of a shot like that, even though it missed the net, even though, it may say, whoa, that don't matter, nothing, it's a hard shot, whatever. But we've been able to see over his career, David Jiricek be a very special player. And I'm going to jump into that here in a moment. But as you see right here as well from Hockey Wilderness, it's also why Jiricek is unquestionably the biggest wild card on the Minnesota Wild roster entering the 25-26 season. Sure, there are tantalizing other options, such as fellow prospect Daniil Yurov, potential to stick at center in the NHL. Still, nobody's range of outcome varies more than David Jiricek this season. I think that's what we need to really think about, not just us, but also the Wild management, is this season is going to be a very important one for the remainder of David Jiricek's career. Not just career as a whole, but future development as an NHL player as well. When you see him as a player in the NHL, which, of course, if he didn't lacerate his spleen last year, would have likely been up for, the majority of the season. But going into 6 games, that's it for the Minnesota Wild, 27 in Iowa. It's a very kind of interesting look when you're seeing him as a player, because when you go back to his first year with the Cleveland Monsters, 38 points in 58 games as a defenseman is absolutely incredible. He's also not by any means a small player at right shot, 6'4", 204. He has a lot of power behind him, and there's so much potential behind a guy like this that is seemingly unused right now by this Wild team. They need to make sure they're doing him right this year by just having him in the NHL roster to start off with, but also coming into this season, they need to actually trust him. They can't give him any kind of time on the bench, no time in the AHL. You got this guy, you have to trust him. You have to let him play his game. And even though if his game may not immediately start off hot, you have him there for a reason. And of course, as you go to take a look at it, he is on the third line at the moment, which really could be moved to the right side, move up and down, whatever happens. I think there's a lot coming down to that, and we're going to see where things go. Because, of course, as we take a look at this, there is no Jonas Brodin here. So there's a lot of moving parts. But I do think that this Minnesota Wild team needs to trust David Jiricek heading in to the season. So let me know what you think about all the stuff that we have here today. We have a lot of news coming, and stuff like this is still trickling in from the summer, and we're getting close now to a few more moves the Minnesota Wild are going to make, and we're going to break it all down here on the channel. That's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.